What type of job seems appealing but ends up being quite disappointing? I'm a personal trainer. Sounds fun, right? Help people exercise all day. Spend time in your already happy place, the gym. In reality, it's a constant grind to keep getting new people in to replace the ones who drop out suddenly on a whim or complain about not having enough time, etc., etc. They never really put in true work and focus and expect their hand to be held the whole time. People who can't learn to appreciate the process of losing weight and getting fit. I don't take it personally, unlike at first, but the crappy part, the networking and marketing and constant disappointment, it's all made up by the fact that I have long standing awesome relationships with some great people who do appreciate the process. Quote unquote fun jobs still have give and take. Yeah, he's living proof that even in the gym, the biggest workout is often dealing with people's commitment issues. Story 2. I'm a financial analyst, so I do lots of Excel work and make reports for upper management. This is the best job I've ever had. I'm always looking for more projects because I love that initial rush of looking at all the angles and trying new things to figure out this particular issue. And then when you create something really cool that makes people's lives easier, amazing. I'd been collecting data for a while for this one system we had according to direction and finally decided that I needed to do something with the data. So I created a database and ran some VLOOKUPs to create a comprehensive report with the option to choose several scenarios. My manager said that customer service would probably like this data. Turns out that customer service was just barely starting a project to gather all the same data I had been doing, and that was the day that they received my report out of the blue. So saved them days of work and the data was ready for them to utilize right away. I actually got a shout out in the leadership meeting of all the big wigs for that, so yeah, a very satisfying job with lots of appreciation. Story 3. I work as a scientist. I'm not sure if people generally view that profession as enjoyable, but I believe they expect it to be filled with more eureka moments and a lot less I have to manually process this data for 600 hours before I can start analyzing it. Story 4. Big law, the pay is incredible, the work is unbelievably stressful and exhausting. A lot of people tell me that they also work a lot, but constantly being mentally on for 50 to 70 hours a week, 40 to 60 in billables, analyzing deals in the tens and hundreds of millions of dollars around a bunch of brilliant, high-functioning A-type personalities who are ready to pounce at any mistake is a whole different level of mental exhaustion that sucks away your ability to do anything, enjoy anything in the time that you do have outside of work. You end up spending so much money for shortcuts just to make life work out. Living close by the office, food delivery, cleaning, dry cleaning, the grand gestures when you can't reliably be there for loved ones, etc., that you don't actually pocket nearly as much as you think you do despite the high salaries. I am so glad I finally made it out after many years of grinding and went of counsel, and I still get paid reasonably well, but the hours are cool. Story 5. Trades. You see the common wisdom spouted time and time again, and it's always along the same lines. Don't go to college, it's a waste of money, get a good job in trades, the money is a lot better anyway. Let's assume the pay is the same or better. On the whole, it's not. There are always outliers and exceptions, but in general, a 4-year degree always pays more and often much more in the long run. Even if this is the case, trades are still worse. Why? First, trades have much higher injury rates. Second, trades have much more frequent and longer periods of unemployment. Third, trades have much higher depression rates. Fourth, trades have higher divorce rates. 5, trades pass away on the job a lot more than anyone else. And 6, trades misuses alcohol and substances more than other jobs. This tends to get glossed over all the time by the "my friend is a plumber and makes $130,000 per year and has 3 houses" crowd. Story 6. Architecture. Architecture is a very weird medium to be in comparison to other art or science professions because it's kind of both, or rather depends on which side of the trade you're doing, but fundamentally, it's an odd place to be in. Let's say you're a painter. You think of stuff, then you paint it. Same if you're a sculptor. But you rarely, if not ever, see an architect going out and physically building his or her own crap. It relies on others to make it happen, and in the end, you're actualizing someone else's dream, using someone else's money, relying on someone else's labor. You can take pride in being a part of it, or not. The pay is relatively low if you're not licensed, hard to break 100K unless you're deep-rooted in a company in a big city like NY. Long hours are expected because it's a noble tradition in architecture, from academic level to professional level. Lots of planning and deadlines are always around the corner. In the end, you're in the service industry. Instead of a 5-minute deadline for a cheeseburger at a drive-thru, it's a 6-month deadline for a design or a set of drawings or construction or something. There's always something. Story 7. I'll say with a caveat that I personally enjoy it, but have seen a lot of colleagues become disillusioned after finally making it. As a doctor, a lot of people see it as a prestigious career that earns a lot of money and is rather cushy. The truth is quite different. Patients can be, and I've even say it's about more than 50%, the rudest, overly demanding, and entitled people you can work with. Some treat you with respect as they are the ones who actively need your services and recognize you have years upon years of knowledge and experience under your belt. But many, if not most, couldn't give a damn and will have a duality about them where they both want you to help them, but also think you don't know anything and will dismiss what you say, especially if it isn't a quick pill fix along the lines of you needing to change your life in some way. Also, medicine is a dirty job. People think of the shirt and tie doctor in the white coat. Yeah, some people like to pretend they are working in some office setting. The reality is your tie will get soaked in random fluids during CPR. You'll get mess on your nice shoes, and some guy having a psychotic break will grab at your tie and have a nice lever by which to try to seriously hurt you. But I still really like my job. It allows me to flex my critical thinking, keeps me active, and does give me a feeling that I did something meaningful day to day. But a lot of my younger peers come out of training ready to quit because they simply didn't know what the job was going to be like. What you see before clinicals, either on TV or what you're exposed to during high school or college, is limited and not a good representation of the job itself. Story 8. Managing a club. I did one for a couple of years, and I can say there's absolutely nothing appealing to the job behind the scenes. It may appear to the customers that it's all about running a bar full of women, but in reality, it's about breaking up petty fights between dancers, dealing with unruly customers, and working for owners who don't want to pay bills and are always looking to find someone cheaper than you as a replacement. And when someone possesses or uses or buys or sells substances on the premises, the police will also take a long, hard look at you and how you run things. Story 9. Working in the TV/film industry. Some days you get to do some cool stuff, but most days it's long, hard, exhausting work. Thankfully, in the last few years, our days have mostly shortened to 12-hour days of work, but I still very vividly remember these 17 to 18-hour days 5 times a week. Plus, with rotating schedules, you never get used to sleeping until you are off a show. You get Fridays where your day starts at 6 p.m., and then when you get off 12 to 14 hours later, I have to turn back over for a 6 a.m. report on Monday. I love what I do, but the people who pretend it must be the easiest job don't really understand all the work that goes into the entertainment industry. Story 10. I signed up for trucking school thinking, I don't mind driving, I can drive trucks, it's just like driving a car, but bigger. Man, no, the heck it is not. I'm about 30 hours out of 60 hours into the driving portion of school. I test out for my CDL in 2 weeks, and I am so stressed every second I am in that truck. There is not one thing about driving a truck that is even remotely easy. It requires so much micromanagement of so many small different things. I'm really hoping I'm just inexperienced, and as more experience comes, things become more natural and second nature. But for now, my mind and also body are always on 10, constantly analyzing, constantly making micro adjustments, constantly stressed out. I knew it would be more challenging than I thought in my head, but I had no clue it would be this difficult. I have gained so much respect for truckers, there is no slack for them in any way, yet they are the backbone that keeps society functioning. Story 11. I have an audience of 90,000 to 100,000 on Instagram. I've sold art all across the world. My work has been in museums and galleries, and some of my art has been on albums with hundreds of thousands of streams. When artists talk to me, they say things like, but you're making a living from what you love. I wish I could do something like that. I became an artist out of necessity. My hometown had an unemployment rate of 84%. If you didn't get a local job, you had to drive 20 miles north or south, and you had to have a vehicle to do it, or to get a vehicle with no job. And then when I left the reservation, I ran into another roadblock: credit. There weren't any jobs back home, so we couldn't build credit. There were virtually zero private landlords. Everything was owned by the tribe, so we had no rental history. We were poor and didn't have anyone to rely on when things got bad. We were beholden to the tribe for health insurance, meaning if we wanted medication or doctor visits, we had to be on the res, which was miserable, or we had to be in a handful of areas across the country. We are effectively medical refugees. So I made art, and people bought my art, so I kept making art. And I wanted to go away on the reservation, so I left in the middle of the night. I slummed it in the city. I lived in my car, in hotels, motels, and cabins in the ghetto. And every once in a while, things got better, but it always got worse. And the ghetto was bad, real bad. I wanted to pass away again, so I ran away. On a whim, I got on a plane and flew across the country because I wanted to pass away. Now I'm tied to art. I'm on a raft in the middle of an ocean. I get some wind in my sails that pushes me where I should go, but it isn't reliable. Some days I only move a few feet and I have to wait. Some days I get lucky and I get pushed a long way, but most days I sit still and worry. Most days I paint out of pure panic because I don't know what else to do. I would want nothing other than to live a boring life, the life that most people live. I would love to have an uninteresting life with no creative impulses. I'd rather be a nobody than what I do now. I'm terrified, always terrified, and nothing improves. So I sit out there on a boat waiting for God to push me further. Somewhere in me, I think there's an island or a coast out there waiting for me, that what I've done and what I can do has a meaning, but I don't really believe it most times. I'm sure I'll run away again in the future, always running, always scared, always worried. Story 12. Nursing. It does have its perks and benefits, but it used to be way better. We are dealing with much sicker patients and much more mental illness. We are expected to care for the same amount of patients, and oftentimes we cannot depend on support staff to do much for individual patients because they are running ragged from having too many patients assigned. Also, if we ask them to do a task and they forget or can't because they are too busy, it falls on our license if that patient wasn't turned or the sugar wasn't done. The emotional cruelty is unmanageable. The benefits are getting worse and things taken away left and right. The burden of responsibility is crushing and spills over into your days off. You begin to dread work on your days off. I showed up on weekend shift and without any training or asking me to do it, I was assigned as charge nurse. The night charge handed off to me and said, "You'll be fine, you've got this." And I was also assigned patients. I had no idea how to be charged. Story 13. I really think that the secret to happiness is to be one of those super lucky people who really love what they do and they make good money doing it. I'm so envious of those people. Like, I'm sure that even when you love your job, it's hard to get out of bed on Monday morning. But even if you can enjoy it just most of the time, that would be amazing. I've had jobs where I would sit in the parking lot before going inside and have a miniature breakdown because I just hated the job so much. I would have to work up the nerve to walk into the building. I did that crap for 6 goddamn years at that place. Crap. Story 14. I used to work as a knight at medieval times. People used to tell me how much they loved the place as a kid and how cool and fun it must be to work there. While it was certainly fun at times, it was also physically exhausting, very dangerous, and did not pay anywhere near what it should have. They would also schedule so many shows that most of them would barely have any guests, but expect maximum effort from you regardless. And the sand got everywhere, like it would find its way back to your house even. I could tell who was going to last based on how desperate their life was before getting hired. Office worker looking for something fun and exciting, you wouldn't last a month. College dropout with 0 career opportunities and chronic depression, I'll enjoy working with you for the next 5 years, lol. Story 15. Zookeeper. Want to have your passion for animals exploited so that some greedy people on the board can pocket most of the money and claim it's for quote-unquote animal care? Want to have to move all over the country to stay competitive in a job field that starts off paying $8 an hour if you're lucky, after 4 years of school and an unpaid internship? Want to be part of an industry who has more rules protecting the animals that you're caring for than you as a worker, while still also not providing that quality of care for said animals at most zoos due to lack of funding? Want to be forced into working 80 hours a week during a lockdown because it's safer if we only have half of you working? And well, someone has to care for the animals without offering those people any kind of benefit for actually staying? Want to constantly get talked down to by everyone who's been there a day longer than you have? Or how about having to be told what to do by managers who have never worked in animal husbandry or care? Become a zookeeper today. Story 16. Corn. You work with a lot of people you won't like or won't want to work with for not a lot of money, especially as a straight guy. And the work itself is largely fake and performative. Everyone acts entitled. Everyone acts like male actors are particularly expendable because, well, they kinda are. Most directors and videographers have absolutely no idea what they're doing or what their audiences actually want. None. Zero. Half of the time, their thing is in their hand, especially if they're a step above you. At the end of the day, you find out the dude with the camera had it pointed at you from 12 different angles because that's what they saw on the internet, and all of your effort was a total waste. You get a text that somebody who knows somebody got an STI, and suddenly 100 people have to go get tested again. I got out early, but the people I know still in it also complain about their social and dating lives and how hard it is to get jobs in other fields where they might be recognized, for example, a teacher. Story 17. Anything to do with the film industry. If you like working 14, 16-hour days with changing start times and involving strong personalities and very questionable conditions, constantly stressing out about your next job and whether there will even be a next job and rarely seeing your friends and family, that's the gig for you. But seriously, I really don't think there's any other industry with hours as brutal. Occasionally, someone passes away from exhaustion driving home, and everyone talks about the need for reform, but it never gets anywhere. Story 18. Don't know if this is still the case among the youth, but when I was in school, everyone I knew wanted to be a wedding event planner. Baffled the hell out of me because up close, it's a miserable job. Every wedding has at least one awful person in the planning process. If it's not the bride, it's one of the moms. If it's not one of them, it's one of the vendors. I think what a lot of people don't realize is that a wedding planner doesn't actually pick much about the wedding. They are basically glorified project managers there to get everything running and take the blame when vendors mess up. Upscale weddings can involve a dozen different vendors, each specializing in a specific part of the process. Flowers, table linens, the space, the furniture, the catering, the cake, the alcohol, the lights, the music, etc. All of these can be completely different vendors. You're less picking anything versus trying to get something tolerable within the client's budget and the vendor's limitations. Add to that, forget you have weekends. When do weddings happen? Weekends. In addition, weddings are incredibly seasonal. There are months where you have almost no work, then months where you have zero free time. What the seasons are really depends on where you live. For example, here in the deep south, you do not have weddings in June or July because who the heck wants to get married outside when it's 105 degrees? Source: I worked in events for a hotel and my spouse does wedding floral for a living. Story 19. Broadcast TV news producer here. We get all sorts of access to very important people and quickly become jaded by the fact that for every good business person, elected official, politician, etc., there are way more who couldn't care less about anything but their bottom line. Also, 99% of things on TV that look glamorous aren't. Most people put on a different persona the moment the cameras are live, the pay is trash, the stress is high, and no one watches TV anymore. Story 20. Accounting, especially public accounting, where similar to lawyers, you have billable hour requirements. The pay is not great because you are expected to work unpaid overtime during tax season, which occurs twice a year. You end up working 50 to 80 hours for half the year, and many work on the weekends too. You have to interpret laws and apply them, and often the instructions for tax returns are so unclear that many accountants just have to rely on their judgment. It's pretty stressful, and we have to meet tight deadlines. My friend had to set her wedding date outside of tax season just so I could attend. Also, the CPA exam is just as difficult as a bar exam. Nowadays, even if you're not certified, you can still make partners, so it's not as limiting as it was before if you don't have your CPA. Story 21. Testing video games. You're under pressure looking for someone else's mistakes, and when you find them, nobody is happy about it. But if you don't find them, you're liable to get fired. You can't enjoy playing because the stakes are too high and the amount of rote work recording everything you do into a system is tedious as hell. Then, on top of all of that, you can't have fun playing games at home anymore either because it feels like work. And these days, they devalue the job and keep trying to automate it to justify worse and worse pay. Story 22. Teaching. I'm not personally a teacher, but have a lot of friends who went into teaching, and nearly all of them regretted it. Some have even left the profession entirely. People go into it wanting to work with kids and inspire them and help them grow and change these kids' lives. It ends up just being exhausting work with long hours while being hugely underpaid, and you're constantly being mistreated by students and their parents. 100% one of the most misunderstood and undervalued professions. The mentality that teachers only work school hours is BS. Most of your evenings are spent marking or planning lessons. They work more hours than most office jobs. And if you're nodding your head in agreement with some of these stories too, please remember to hit that subscribe and like button for more videos just like this. Help me reach my next milestone of 60,000 subscribers. All right, thanks in advance. On to the next one. Story 23. Social media manager. I worked in the hospitality sector. I would do marketing research, content creation, video, photo, graphic design, website design, development, scheduling posts, copywriting, profile management, Google reviews, Yelp, etc. Replying to customer messages on all platforms, analytic data collection to feed marketing research, and then maybe enter the business in for awards or grants. I spend 8 hours a day doing it, no bother. Even if I'm at home and on my social media privately, I cannot not see what people are trying to sell, product, or way of life, or what trend they are hopping on. It's handy since I can spot a scam, but also because I don't really enjoy social media like normal. Story 24. Almost anything in the medical field in America. They have to see far too many patients in a day, with appointment times usually scheduled for between 10 to 20 minutes, despite it not being uncommon to have to spend nearly a full hour with one patient. There's a reason why your doctor or PA is often late coming into your room, and now they have to deal with a rightfully upset patient, even though there's literally nothing they could have done. Crippling student loans if you don't end it all before you're done with school. Sadly, not a joke. The money used to be good enough to make it worthwhile, but with inflation and the current cost of living, it's certainly not. The US medical system is now not even trying to hide the fact that it's all about money and profit, and they're working these professionals so hard. This directly affects patient outcomes. The patients aren't happy, they can't get quality care, and the professionals in the field recognize that and hate it just as much, if not more. The only people who could possibly be happy with this are the elites at the top who somehow get to call the shots on behalf of others, and they're essentially untouchable. Keep in mind, I haven't even brought up medical bills in this rant. Story 25. Any job where you don't actually do anything, but you still have to pretend in some way that you're doing something and can't just actively slack off. It's basically just commuting to be bored for 8 hours a day. It's mind numbing stuff. And unless you're quite late in your career, generally you actually have some kind of aspiration to make progress. And doing nothing means you have nothing to show in interviews down the road. So there's a lingering anxiety that you're just wasting time, making no progression at all, while others are actually doing stuff to get ahead. Story 26. Social work can be very fulfilling but has so much burnout. You're taking care of everyone else, and there aren't many people, if anyone, taking care of you. Being trauma informed means you understand why people behave in a certain way and do your best to be helpful and caring while setting boundaries, but we rarely get that in return. Self care is important, but it seems like so many people expect a person to be healthy all on their own. People need people. We should nurture each other, but I always hear people talking about go to therapy. Yeah, we do that, but damn, sometimes you just need a person to love and care for you in a way that helps level you out or lets you feel like you're important to someone besides a client. When people constantly take, self care can't pour in to replace it nearly quick enough. Story 27. Publicist, particularly in music. I jumped into the world of music PR enthusiastically because I was a music journalist at the time and was very good at making connections, so it was naturally good for me. Of course, the pros are that you get to work with a lot of music artists and go to cool events and do things that everybody thinks is so glamorous. But on the back end, it's hours and hours of being told no, then trying to explain to an artist why they're not getting the media they feel they should get, being blamed because an artist's trajectory isn't the way everyone around them needs it to be, even when the artist isn't doing their own job to get there, or other members of their team are trash. Of course, if the artist does well, the artist is applauded for doing it all by themselves. But if the artist doesn't do well, then it's because they had a crappy team. It can be very upsetting when an artist doesn't do well during a campaign. You could do all the right things and make all the right calls, but if the press isn't feeling that, you're just out. I was very good at my job and had several people I worked with early on go on to be very big stars, so I'm definitely proud of the work I did. It was just draining. Since I transitioned into doing project management and YouTube channel management, I've been a lot more mentally healthy and happy. Story 28. I want to be a chef. No, you don't. You'll likely be stuck as a line cook for a decade or two, doing menial, backbreaking work for 12 to 16 hours a day at some boring neighborhood restaurant where the owners see you as just another expense. 1 in 20 become actual chefs. Once you become a chef, you have to add scheduling, ordering, menu creation, human resources, and firing and hiring to your load. It's not fun, it's not glamorous, it's not adding microgreens to a plate with tweezers. It's hard, boring work and long hours for low pay, but god dang it, when it's good, it's good. So if I ever see someone adding microgreens with tweezers, I should probably assume they're either brand new or delusional, right? Story 29. I deliver and set up medical equipment for patients. It doesn't take long before you realize how truly lucky you are. How things you do might affect you and later in life. I find myself re examining a lot of my choices on a daily basis. Also, I have always had a problem expressing grief. By doing this, I found myself from time to time feeling so bad for people I don't even know, to the point of crying due to their situation. People are left alone with no one to care for them or look after them, to live out their final chapter of their life alone. It is so sad sometimes. Story 30. Office computer-based desk jobs. The thought is, oh, it's easy. Just send some emails, go to meetings, make spreadsheets or code software or whatever, work remotely, earn good money, and there is some truth in that. But there is no true sense of fulfillment in creating value for shareholders in the corporate ladder. And office politics and fake deadlines are soul-sucking and demeaning, all while trying to sell the manipulative, we're a family here vision. Also, sitting and looking at screens all day is really bad for your body and mental health, and remote work ends up feeling really isolating and turns your home into a stressful workplace where you can't relax. Story 31. Saving up money and opening up your own shop. Bad health can pop up and obliterate you with nobody to fall back on. You still got to be there every day until you can afford to hire someone. You're supposed to track everything, every tiny amount of money. Did you pay yourself $2 to buy a bagel? Write that down. It's survival mode, constantly preparing for the future and just in case. It's making educated guesses, throwing money into things you think everyone will want, and getting disappointed by the things that flop. Nobody tells you what you're supposed to do, but eventually you start wishing that somebody would. You think you're good at marketing? It's probably not enough. Cleaning your shop will take a huge chunk of your time. A good website will probably take years of editing and fixing. Any skills you have will become something to fixate on and spend too much time on. Think your graphic design background will help you? Maybe, or maybe you'll spend weeks on your new flyers. It's terrifying. I'm terrified. Story 32. Interior design. TV makes it look fun. Clients changing their minds or being indecisive, impatient, or entitled. Working on 6 projects at once, countless hours in front of a computer designing, project management, back orders, permits, flaky contractors, cost increases between the time of the estimate and the time of the work being done, etc. It's a very stressful job, and at the end of the day, nobody cares who designed a space, only that it's beautiful and functional. Story 33. YouTuber/game reviews ran a channel for 6 years. Each 10-minute video took about 40 hours start to finish. 1. Playing the game, 2. Writing the review, 3. Editing the script, 4. Shooting the video, 5. Editing and splicing footage, and 6. Reshoots and rendering. The audience was there, the money was rolling in. After year 2, I was making $2,000 a month, but the algorithm and fake content strikes derailed most of my day-to-day. Started hiring people, then YouTube craps us on ad revenue. $2,000 a month becomes $2.50. Can't pay folks, fans are telling me do it for passion. Passion doesn't pay my staff. But the worst, bad games and good games are easy to review. What about a mediocre game? A game that's forgettable? They are hard as heck to review. Oh, and don't forget the idiots who tell you, you only play 25 hours in this game, it doesn't get good until 400 hours. Screw those people, that's Stockholm Syndrome. Story 34. Most jobs, I went into electrical engineering designing integrated circuits. You spend a shocking amount of time dealing with meetings, writing documents, begging for funding, throwing away work when projects get canceled, and so forth. In a good year, I got to do actual design work for about 10 to 15% of my work hours. There were a lot less than good years, too. Most good jobs are like this: meetings, boring trainings, loud cubicle farms when you want to concentrate, lousy managers, slacker coworkers. You get random layoffs, some doomed projects, writing documentation no one will ever again read, and so many other soul-ending realities that will suck the joy out of any passion-driven career choice. Story 35. Being a therapist, don't get me wrong, there's been several instances where I genuinely help people and it's such a great feeling. But the majority of the time you watch people affected by systems they cannot change. You see people ripped apart by the world, and what you really want to be able to do is hand them a bag of money. Or the flip side, you see systems fail people. I once said to Child Protective Services about a family of multiple kids with a cruel parent after a really bad incident, what needs to happen? Do I need to call you to tell you they ended one of them before you do something? It's tough. At the start of my job, I cried a lot. It's not like TV. Maybe for some, maybe they serve a high socioeconomic clientele. But for the majority of those in the mental health field, we see day after day people who life just took a giant crap on. We see generational trauma. We see people without food on the table, or people whose lives were upturned by a sudden tragedy like getting hit by an intoxicated driver and not being able to work anymore. It's tough. Story 36. Urban planning and a planner. Seems like an opportunity to really sculpt and improve your community. It sounds like you get to play SimCity, as people will say. But the reality is most development is driven by wealthy stakeholders and developers, and you're reacting to their plans rather than planning things from the ground up. Getting the opportunity to actually put together a project when working for a government agency can be pretty rare. Definitely depends on the size and culture of the area, though. And then the politics are so frustrating. You can spend months or years putting together a proposal just for it to die in a referendum because someone puts together a disinformation campaign about how much it will cost that has no basis in reality. The folks are terrified of new things and higher taxes, so they'll believe the boogeyman. It's so frustrating. Anyone looking to get into the field should definitely pair it with an engineering degree, so you have the option to work private side or leave the planning field altogether. Story 37. Most creative jobs generally have lower pay and higher turnover rates than other jobs. Since there is an inherent demand for them, employers are of no shortage of eager new labor and can afford to overwork and underpay their employees because when they leave, there's always someone else willing to take their place. The work in most creative jobs is nothing like in the analogous hobbies, and people may end up learning the hard way. A good example here is game development versus software engineering. I like game development as a hobby, but would never pursue it as a career. Game devs get paid less and work to the bone, whereas in my normal software job, I get paid well. Work is reasonable and enjoyable enough, and I have plenty of time and energy to pursue my passions as hobbies. Story 38. Game tester. I did it for funsies for one of my modder bros, and that was taxing enough. Doing it for a full game? Nah, dude, it blows chunks. You'd think it would be nice to get into the game before anyone else, but it's not. Nothing is polished. The animations are all janky. The physics are wild. Your main job is to run headfirst into walls to see if you can no-clip, or when, not if, you come across something progression or game breaking to record it, start the whole game over again and try to replicate it 2 more times. And then that's it. You just keep starting over from the beginning to find a fault because there's not enough content for a full game yet. Takes all the fun out of gaming, in my opinion. You'd have to pay me a considerable salary to do that full time. And even then, I probably wouldn't because I like my hobby to be a hobby and game testing turns it into work. Story 39. Working at a houseplant shop. Already left a comment about opening a shop, but here's the plant part of the things. Succulents. They get damaged if you so much as touch them. Now that one has a fingerprint on it and nobody will buy it, it's so hard to throw plants away, man. You'll get annoyed at the plants that just sit there for sale forever. The leaves are always dusty and there's no way to keep cleaning them all, but plants won't sell if they're dusty. You're always cleaning up dirt and you're washing your hands so often they get all dry and papery. Dealing with bugs on the plants feels like a hazmat situation. Nobody touched this guy. Oh God, which of you has been near him? We gotta monitor you now. How did I miss that? We're running out of space in quarantine. I also straight up just refuse to work with cacti now. I've heard too many horror stories, and the first time I tried buying cacti for the shop, I ended up with tiny thorns stuck in my hands. They stayed in my hands for 5 days despite my efforts. They happened without me ever even touching the cacti, just the pot. Apparently, they drop spikes. Those cacti were never let inside the store, banished. Keeping a plant alive for months and then hearing that the person who bought it ended it also kind of disheartening, especially when they bring the plant back. I want to be encouraging, so I smile and stuff, but inside I'm crying. Story 40. I haven't seen an elementary school teacher yet. Imagine getting to hang out with the cutest little humans all day, coloring, crafts, and all the other ladies are going to be sweet little teachers like you. Except they behave like middle schoolers and are going to genuinely bully you like small children bully one another in movies for the same exact reason small children bully one another in the movies. The children themselves are at times destructive, violent, or even worse, neglected and mistreated. You're going to call CPS over and over and over, and day after day after day, that poor little baby is still going to show up at your school, having had nothing done to help them. Those cute little wild things are going to get tested, and you are held responsible for those scores. In fact, it's the main way you get to keep your job, unless parents complain. The parents will complain. You will get at least one parent who hates you viscerally, and literally there is no logical reason as to why. How on earth could you gain all that weight, be broke, and be that stressed when you get so many vacations? The truth is, you get 0 vacations, but the company and school gets vacations from paying you for your work. I was really alarmed when I started this career and noticed how many users and apparent alcoholics there are in this field. This stress is just something insurmountable. That being said, I love it. I feel like I'm in a cruel relationship. Story 41. Not saying who, but I got a cool opportunity to meet and hang out with 2 members of a band on tour before one of their shows. It was supposed to be like a 5-minute meet and greet, but because of some planning mix-up, they had time to end and the 3 of us hung out for like 30 to 45 minutes backstage. The lead singer guitarist was talking about touring and how before you make it big, it seems so amazing, but that once you actually get there, it becomes a job just like any job. He wasn't being negative, just that even something as great as being on tour turns into just another day of work after you do it enough. Story 42. Medicine by a million, at least in the US. The training to be a physician takes up the entirety of your 20s, and you miss so many important events in your friends' families' lives. It's so hard to find and keep a relationship because you're moving for training every 3 to 4 years and barely have free time. You're constantly sleep deprived and depressed, and the hierarchy of medical education is built to put you at the bottom of the totem pole and feel like crap about yourself. You go into the career idealistic and wanting to help people, But the reality of the job is that your ability to help is greatly limited by insurance and the financial motives of a for profit health system. You see people at their worst and most vulnerable and are exposed to endless grief. You come to realize how much unavoidable hurt and suffering there is in this world and feel pretty helpless most of the time. Story 43. Professional poker player. Before I became one, I had the image that I would be my own boss and would have enough free time to pursue my hobbies and travel the world. While the money was good, my physical and mental health deteriorated a lot. It's a negative sum game and filled with hustlers and schmucks looking for their own interest only, so dealing with others in the industry can be quite draining. The games are built around weaker players, so your schedule depends on their schedule. Substance fixation is rampant. I think every single person who plays poker for a living becomes psychology imbalanced. Story 44. Dentist. I have a couple of friends who are dentists, and everyone thinks they are going to just be loaded once they get a job. Yes, the pay is good if you have lots of patients, but unless you own your own practice, you are at the mercy of the owner and insurance on when you get paid because you are not a salary. My friends tell me they've never known what their paycheck will look like until it hits because they get paid when patients and insurance pay their bills. It can be very inconsistent, especially if you work for a practice that does not have a lot of patients. Story 45. I would say any job that seems super appealing to you as a person, if management, coworkers, subordinates, culture is a dumpster fire. I had a job that many might consider a dream job. It involved working at a prominent globally known racetrack. I moved almost 2,000 miles from home for a mid-level management position there. I had an office looking out on pit lane. I got to play with supercars with no speed limit to worry about and lots of other perks. They approached me for the job as I was doing what I was doing elsewhere with a well-oiled machine. When I got there, everything was a disaster. No money to do anything that they hired me to do. Upper management just straight up having my silo at the knees randomly with no notice because it would get in the way of theirs that day and upsetting customers as a result. And I inherited a team that was so apathetic and miserable there that they just redirected all that from their former boss to me. On top of that, other colleagues were talking behind their backs and nobody was open to a single new idea. Also, me being a liberal elite from the big city in their southern town, apparently started a rumor I was gay. I'm not because of how I dressed, business casual instead of cowboy boots and belt buckles. Furthermore, the billionaire owner would force us to stand at his events just on the off chance someone wanted something from that silo on a Saturday, Sunday for 10 plus hours in 100 plus degree weather. And if we wanted water, we'd have to go buy it from concessions. The icing on the cake was there was one HR person and they only existed to do payroll. Any challenges with employees fell on deaf ears entirely. You could have the best job in the world on paper, but if the people around you are the bad ones, the job is bad. Story 46. Illustration and commercial art. Oh, you get to be so creative. No, you have to read non-creative people's minds, frequently quash any personal artistic impulses you might have, shill for entities you find ethically repugnant or else starve. If you're freelance, you can't plan for anything or have a predictable life or pay schedule, and must take any job that comes along as there's an army of others like you who'll do that job in an instant and for less. Pulling all-nighters, several all-nighters in a row, sometimes to make idiotic deadlines. Add to all of this the overarching fact that you have to be creative and artistic for money. That's a surefire way to ruin a genuine love of doing art. I have friends who have been illustrators their whole lives and still manage, so your mileage may vary. I did it for 20 years, started out fine, ended in the sort of burned out horror that made a show up, get paid, non-creative entry-level job seem appealing. And if any of these stories got to you, here's more for you. YouTube thinks you're going to love this. I'll catch you in that video.